Hello, everyone. You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, broadcasting from our studio in Edmonton, Canada. It's Monday, April 12th, 2021 on this side of the world. And a good Tuesday morning, magandang umaga, to our viewers in the Philippines. In the news, we have updates from several of our correspondents from across North America. Eliza Gonzalez-Manglicmont in Washington, D.C.
CDC director declares racism a public health threat.
Mayan Manzano-Garzon in Sicklerville, New Jersey.
New Jersey to provide $35 million in aid to restaurants and $15 million to small businesses and nonprofits.
Anna Cui in Las Vegas.
Nevada Attorney General cautions against COVID-19 related scams.
AJ Rayo Totar in Panorama City, California.
Los Angeles Unified School District reopens select elementary schools and education centers.
Jade Furran in Oxnard, California.
Hollywood Bowl to reopen with 4 free concerts for healthcare and essential workers and first responders.
And for EBC Sports, Tenny Samagi.
USA women's soccer team eyes gold in Tokyo and addresses gender inequities in sports.
We also have a report from Oceania. Our correspondent, Irish Dale Radam, will take us horseback riding. And for tonight's roundtable, I want to find out from our correspondents when they were growing up, what was their dream job and did that come true? Our coverage begins now. We begin with several stories from the police beat. In Knoxville, Tennessee this afternoon, 1 person dead following a shooting at a city high school. Now, this is the latest information I've been able to get from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation. Police arrived on the scene about just a little past 3 o'clock local time after reports of a male who was possibly armed with a gun. Police found the individual in a school restroom. They ordered him out, but he refused to comply. As officers entered the restroom, the suspect opened fire, wounding a police officer. Police shot the suspect. He was pronounced dead at the scene. The officer who was wounded was taken to hospital. He's expected to survive. At this time, the motive is not known. The school will remain closed for a couple of days while the investigation continues. Now, let us update you on another story, this one in Minneapolis. That police officer who shot a 20-year-old black man in a Minneapolis suburb yesterday apparently confused her handgun with her taser. That statement from Brooklyn Center Police Chief Tim Gannon. He says the officers thought she had grabbed her taser. Now, I'm going to show you some footage now from the body cam of one of the officers, and I want to warn you, some of the content of this clip is graphic. Here we can see the officers approaching Dante White's car. 2 of the officers went up to the car. A 3rd stood behind the vehicle, and it's her body cam footage that we're actually watching here. Now, the officers ask Wright to step out of the car. You can see the officer on the driver's side of the vehicle trying to handcuff Wright. Wright pulls away, and then you can see the struggle there. Wright manages to get back into the car, into the driver's seat. And now that officer who was standing behind the vehicle moves forward. And as she does, you can hear her shout taser at least 3 times before she fires, but she's firing her gun. As the car drives away, the officer says to her colleague, "I just shot him." Wright had been stopped for a traffic violation, and police discovered that he had an outstanding warrant. Now, that shooting sparked protests overnight in the Brooklyn Center suburb of Minneapolis. The city's already on edge amid the ongoing trial of the former police officer charged with murdering George Floyd. Overnight, protesters and police clashed. The mayor finally imposed a curfew at 1 this morning. It lasted until about 6 a.m. The White House has now weighed in on this, with President Joe Biden saying there's no need for violent protests.
question is, was it an accident? Was it intentional? That remains to be determined by a full-blown investigation. But in the meantime, I want to make it clear again, there is absolutely no justification, none, for looting, no justification for violence. Peaceful protest, understandable.
Meanwhile, in the George Floyd murder trial in Minneapolis, the defense has asked that the jury be sequestered because of the violence overnight. Hennepin County Judge Peter Cahill denied that motion.
I think the better way is to just continue with the trial as we've been going. That's a separate issue. They should treat it as such. It'd be a different story if it was civil unrest following another verdict, where the jury can see what the consequence of a certain verdict might be in a similar case, but that's not this case.
The defense worried jurors could be swayed by the overnight protests. And a case in Virginia, where a police officer pepper sprayed a black Army officer yesterday while holding him at gunpoint. Latest update, the cop has been fired. Lieutenant Karen Nazario, who's black and Latino, repeatedly asked what he had done wrong as two police officers holding guns demanded he get out of his car. He was wearing his military uniform. Police accused him of not cooperating before blasting him with pepper spray, forcing him to the ground. Virginia Governor Ralph Northam says he's disturbed and angered by the incident, and he's promising an independent investigation. COVID-19 now, when is it all going to be over? Not for a while. At least that's the assessment of the Director General of the World Health Organization, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
This pandemic is a long way from over, but we have many reasons for optimism. The decline in cases and deaths during the first 2 months of the year shows that this virus and its variants can be stopped.
Despite optimism from Tedros, cases have been on the rise for the last 7 weeks, and in the last month, deaths have increased. Maria Van Kerkhove, the WHO's technical lead on COVID-19, says things are not looking good.
We are in a critical point of the pandemic right now. The trajectory of this pandemic is growing. In the 7th week in a row, we've had more than 4.4 million new cases reported in the last week. If you compare that to a year ago, we had about 500,000 cases being reported per week. Last week, we had 4.4 million cases. If you look on our website and you actually look at the epi curve and the trajectory of the pandemic right now, it is growing exponentially. This is not the situation we want to be in 16 months into a pandemic.
Let's look at today's COVID-19 numbers now. These are provided by the Coronavirus Resource Center of Johns Hopkins University in Medicine. As of 6 p.m. Eastern Time today, the number of COVID-19 cases reported worldwide now more than 136,315,000. Top 3 on the countries with recorded cases: the United States, more than 31.2 million, India, more than 13.5 million, and Brazil, more than 13.4 million. Now, sadly, more than 2,940,000 lives, nearly 3 million people worldwide, have been lost to this virus. The top 3 countries with the most number of COVID-19 related deaths: the United States, more than 562,000, Brazil, more than 353,000, and Mexico, more than 209,000. In Europe, 1 million deaths. That's the grim milestone they're marking today. 1 million deaths from COVID-19 since the pandemic began. Now, the number comes from health authorities from across Europe who compiled the numbers from the region's 52 countries and territories. The death toll is the highest of any global region. Breaking it down, nearly 60% of the deaths in Europe happened in just 6 countries: the United Kingdom, Italy, Russia, France, Germany, and Spain. The United Kingdom's infection rate, though, is falling as its massive vaccination campaign leads the way in Europe. About 60% of the adult population in the UK has already received a first dose of a vaccine. France, Italy, and Russia, meanwhile, are facing a third wave of coronavirus infections, and they are vaccinating their populations at a much slower pace. There's a worldwide shortage of chips, computer chips. U.S. President Joe Biden holding a virtual meeting with the top executives of 19 countries in the companies, I should say, in the semiconductor industry. He told them the U.S. must build up its own infrastructure to prevent shortages in the future.
But I've been saying for some time now, China and the rest of the world is not waiting, and there's no reason why Americans should wait. We're investing aggressively in areas like semiconductors and batteries. That's what they're doing and others. So must we.
Shortages have resulted in car makers having to shut down their assembly lines because, you know, these chips are used in a lot of the electronics in the car. Most semiconductors are produced in Eastern Asia. Now for some good news. I want to update you on this story I told you about several months ago. The last of the 9 Rothschild's giraffes. They had been stranded on Longacharo Island on Kenya's Lake Baringo. Well, the last of them has been rescued. Now, you recall that that island was sinking, and that threatened the survival of the giraffes. It's been a big job to round them up. You know, once the handlers catch them, they have to lead them to a barge. They're then transported across the lake, and here they get to the other side. They're released, and they get to run free. Rebbe Sabai, who runs the Ruko Community Conservancy, says all 9 are in their new home.
So we have like 17 kilometer square sanctuary. It's a bigger space for the 9 giraffes. So we anticipate like maybe in the near 2 to 3 years, giraffe will multiply. Like we can see the first giraffe which was translocated on Dad. You can see a very big changes in terms of body health.
Took about 5 months to move those animals. Up next, we'll have stories from Washington, D.C. and New Jersey. Eagle News America continues.
Events happen around us all the time, in our community, in our country, around the world. Events that affect people, move communities, or simply inspire us. Interesting events that people need to know. In these interesting times, we continue to be a competent partner in delivering news about these events. Fast, accurate, balanced. Eagle News, because we live in interesting times.
You're watching Eagle News America. I'm Thomas I. Likeness. The Centers for Disease Control have added the racism to its list of public health dangers. Joining us live from Washington, D.C. to tell us about that, EBC's Eliza Gonzalez-Manglicot. Eliza, this declaration has been a long time coming to address this problem.
Thanks, Thomas. A great Monday evening to you and a wonderful Tuesday morning to our friends on the other side of the globe. Yes, Thomas, racism is a serious public health threat. This is what the director of Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, Rochelle P. Walensky, declares. In a statement, Walensky highlights several new efforts the CDC is making to accelerate its work to address racism as a fundamental driver of racial and ethnic health inequities in the country. Walensky introduces the website Racism and Health. This will serve as a hub for the agency's efforts and a catalyst for greater education and dialogue around these critical issues. CDC's director says the impact of COVID-19 is felt most severely in communities of color. She says these communities have experienced disproportionate case counts and deaths, and where the social impact of the pandemic has been most extreme. Walensky says the pandemic eliminated inequities that have existed for generations and revealed for all of America a known but often unaddressed epidemic impacting public health. and that is racism. Walensky emphasizes that racism is not just the discrimination against one group based on the color of their skin or their race or ethnicity, but the structural barriers that impact racial and ethnic groups differently to influence where a person lives, where they work, where their children play, and where they worship and gather in community. These social determinants of health have proven lifelong negative effects, not only on the mental, but also on the physical health of individuals in communities of color. The statement further says that over the years, these structural inequities have resulted in stark racial and ethnic health disparities, proven severe, far-reaching, and unacceptable. CDC's role in addressing the impact of racism on public health: number one, to study the impact of social determinants on health outcomes, how racism affects health, and to find solutions to address this. To use COVID-19 funding to make new and expanded investments in racial, ethnic minority, and other disproportionately affected communities around the country, and to expand internal agency efforts to foster diverse, inclusive, and affirming environment for all, and also to promote the new portal, like what we've mentioned earlier, Racism and Health, to increase awareness about this very pressing issue today. Now for some weather update, it is 57 degrees Fahrenheit or 14 degrees Celsius here in the nation's capital. In Washington, Eliza Gonzalez and Manglikmot, Eagle News will live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Liza, you mentioned social determinants of health, with racism being one of those determinants. Does the CDC mention what the others might be?
Well, Thomas, in a related report, the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion mentions some examples. Now, aside from racism, other social determinants of health are safe housing, transportation in neighborhoods, discrimination and violence, education, job opportunities and income, access to nutritious foods and physical activity opportunities, polluted air and water, and language and literacy skills. Now, Thomas, how do these affect health? Well, according to the Office of Disease Prevention and Health Promotion, the social determinants of health also contribute to wide health disparities and inequities. For example, people who don't have access to grocery stores with healthy foods are less likely to have good nutrition, and that raises their risk of health conditions like heart disease, diabetes, and obesity, and even lowers life expectancy relative to people who do have access to healthy foods. But they say that just promoting healthy choices will not eliminate these and other health disparities. Instead, public health organizations and their partners in sectors like education, transportation, and housing need to take action to improve the conditions in people's environments. So, Thomas, that brings us back to racism. Many people experiencing these conditions are key drivers of health inequities with communities of color, placing those within these populations at greater risk for poor health outcomes. Thomas?
Very complex problem and simply no easy solutions. Thanks for that report, Eliza, and stick around. We want to find out what your dream job was when we get to our roundtable. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Thomas.
New Jersey's governor had the state's checkbook out, and he was providing some money, about $50 million worth, to help restaurants and other small businesses. Eagle News correspondent Mayan Manzano-Gerzon is standing by in Sicklerville. Mayan, this must be a welcome relief for a lot of people.
Right, Thomas, exactly. And thank you. Governor Phil Murphy signed into law A-5444, which provides $35 million in federal COVID-19 relief aid for restaurants throughout New Jersey. The bill, sponsored by Senators Vin Gopal and Joseph Lagana and Assembly members Vincent Mazeo, Pedro Mejia, Christopher Tully, and Louis Greenwald, provides aid to a particularly hard-hit sector of New Jersey's economy. The bill is part of a $5 $100 million relief effort aimed at helping New Jersey's small businesses recover from the year-long pandemic. Take a look.
With a few strokes from a few pens, New Jersey will formally put aside $35 million in federal pandemic relief funds for our restaurants, bars, breweries, brew pubs, and wineries. And to be sure, this isn't just a matter of good sense. It is going to be a matter of state law. This new law doubles the initial $35 million commitment we made to these small businesses a few months ago. It adds to the efforts of the New Jersey Economic Development Authority, the Department of Community Affairs, and the New Jersey Redevelopment Authority, who have worked directly with our downtown communities to provide millions of dollars in additional financial supports. Through the EDA's innovative, and this is a game changer, Sustain and Serve New Jersey program is one example. We help foster new partnerships between our restaurants and community-based organizations committed to ending hunger and food insecurity. Restaurants cook up great meals. Families in need are fed. It is the ultimate win-win. And through all we're doing, we will now be able to continue to do, not only can we do more of our dining establishments to be able to make it through the remainder of the pandemic, but they'll be poised for a stronger future once it's over. Our restaurants and bars and breweries and wineries are a critical part of our state, our economy, and our culture. These are not just small businesses. These are places where communities come together and which also help define a community. These are places where people from all over the region and indeed the entire country come for a taste of New Jersey. These are also places that are creating jobs and transforming neighborhoods for the better, redefining our state.
The relief aid will be administered by the New Jersey Economic Development Authority. To date, the NJEDA has distributed more than $250 million in aid to some 55,000 businesses across the state. Moreover, the governor also signed into law A-A5446, which provides $15 million in federal COVID-19 relief aid for small businesses throughout the state. The bill, sponsored by Senators Linda Greenstein and Joseph Lagana, and Assembly members Joe Downey, Andrew Zicker, and Sterling Stanley, provides aid in the form of grants to small businesses and nonprofits in need. Take a look.
So in a couple of minutes, I'm going to sign into law a commitment to provide an additional $15 million in much-needed direct financial supports for our small business community. Folks like Kim, Amin, and Kathy and their fellow small business owners, not just here in Princeton, but up and down our state. And because of the hard work of our congressional delegation, New Jersey's been able to put hundreds of millions of dollars directly into the downtown small businesses and community nonprofits that make towns like Princeton such a point of pride for our state. And in absentia, in that regard, I want to give a huge shout out to your Congresswoman, Bonnie Watson-Coleman, for her tremendous advocacy in our nation's capital. And thanks to the sponsorship of Andrew, and whose strong leadership within and representation of the Princeton community in the legislature has been invaluable, along with Linda's leadership and their colleagues, notably, and I'll mention by name, Senator Joe Lagana, and Assembly members Sterling Stanley and Joanne Downey, this commitment will be carried through not just from the feds, but through into state law. And the efforts of Tim and his team at the EDA to protect and preserve our small businesses cannot be overstated. Over the past year, the EDA has approved roughly 55,000 applications representing over $250 million in funding. The impact can be seen up and down our streets throughout the thousands of small businesses whose doors remain open and the countless community-based nonprofits whose core missions remain fulfilled. The law that I'm about to sign in a few minutes is purely additive to these efforts and will ensure that we can do more for more.
The signing was held at Jam and Crepes, a business that began its journey at a farmer's market in the local train station parking lot, and in 2014 opened its first brick-and-mortar location in downtown Princeton. And for New Jersey's latest COVID-19 numbers, the Department of Health has reported another 2,079 new positive cases today, bringing our statewide total to 839,114. Sadly, we are also reporting 27 new confirmed deaths, pushing the total to 22,323 fatalities. On the brighter side, the latest total of fully vaccinated people in New Jersey is now 2,190,874. To know the latest on New Jersey's vaccination progress, visit covid19.nj.gov/vaccine. And Thomas, for a quick weather update, it's currently 10:07 in the evening here in New Jersey, and it's currently cloudy. It is 46 degrees Fahrenheit or 8 degrees Celsius. In Sicklerville, New Jersey, May and Manzano Garzon, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Oh, the weather's always good in the Garden State. Before you go, just a quick question here. How's the restaurant industry in New Jersey been affected by the pandemic?
Thomas, the restaurant industry is the largest private sector employer here in the state of New Jersey, representing over 300,000 jobs in normal times. And so during this time, 1/3 of food establishments here in New Jersey closed since COVID hit. And we all know, Thomas, that many will not be able to come back. And also, according to the Department of Labor and Employment, 90,000 jobs have been lost in the food service industry alone. Thomas.
Mayanne, thanks for joining us this evening. Stick around. We'll talk to you about that dream job when we get to our virtual roundtable. Still to come, I've got stories from Nevada and California. This is Eagle News America.
It's time to take one step further and face the impossible. Time to search the unknown and fight for the truth. Time to overcome boundaries and connect the world. It's time for DW News.
Hey there, Arnie Aquino here at Hatley Castle, one of the filming locations for the X-Men series. Don't forget to tune in to Digital Nest only on Net 25.
Watching Eagle News America, I'm Thomas I. Like News. It's sad, but in every crisis, there are scammers who try to take advantage of people, and the pandemic has proven to be no exception. In Nevada, the state's attorney general has warned people about COVID-19 related scams. EBC's Anna Cui joins us now from Las Vegas. Anna, how serious is this problem?
Yes, Thomas, thank you. As you mentioned, in every situation, good or bad, including this pandemic, some people surely find ways to take advantage of others. As you recall, Thomas, at the early stages of the pandemic, we saw price gouging for bottles of hand sanitizers. We saw unemployment fraud. We heard of those who cheated others out of their stimulus checks. And now we hear of those selling fake CDC vaccination cards online. That might sound not too bad, right? Well, Nevada Attorney General Aaron D. Ford called on Twitter, eBay, and Shopify to take immediate action to prevent people from selling these fraudulent CDC vaccination cards on their platforms. I mean, imagine these people can attend events and maybe even travel using their fraudulent vaccination cards as proof that they've been vaccinated, while they could be asymptomatic carriers of the virus, right? And, Thomas, as we heard earlier, updates from WHO, we are in a critical point of the pandemic right now, with the trajectory of this pandemic growing exponentially. So really, it's not just a small thing to be selling these fraudulent CDC cards. In addition to Nevada, a bipartisan coalition of 45 attorneys general raised concerns about the public health risk of these fake cards in a letter to the company's CEOs. In this letter, the CEOs are being asked to monitor their sites for ads or links selling blank or fraudulently completed vaccination cards, and to quickly take them down. The letter also asks for these platforms to preserve records and information about the ads and the people who are selling them. On the flip side, we do see a lot of people happily posting a picture of their vaccination card on social media, and authorities caution the public not to do that. Ford warns that those who post a photo of their vaccination card should be sharing information that compromises their identity. I mean, these vaccine cards include your full name, your date of birth, and maybe some other patient information, all of which, are invitation to those who want to maybe steal your identity. Even the place of the vaccination site should really be kept private, according to, some experts. So we have to remember that on social media platforms, any information you post can have a potential global reach, I mean, definitely it will be viewed more than just by those on your friends list. So, and we get it. Some people really just live by social media, and there's nothing wrong with that. Attorney General Ford said, if you want to share your vaccine status on social media, consider posting a photo of something else, maybe that bandage on your arm, or maybe a vaccination sticker if you got one. And if you've already posted a photo of your card, consider removing it or editing the photo to hide your personal information. And as a general rule, it's always a good practice to think twice before posting anything on social media that could be used to steal your identity or reveal personal information that you don't want widely shared. In Las Vegas, Anna Cui, Eagle News, we live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Just when I think I've heard everything, I don't believe it, and I don't know who I dislike worse, the people selling those fake cards or the clowns buying them.
Exactly.
Because they're equally as dangerous. Anyway, I want to ask, what are the experts suggesting people do with their vaccination cards?
Well, so, you know, Thomas, I've seen online, like, health experts say they should laminate it, but then now they're saying, no, they shouldn't laminate it because, you know, they need to have these cards. Let's say, for example, the Pfizer and the Moderna, you have 2 vaccine doses, so it's not good to laminate it before you get that second vaccine. It is, you know, they are saying that, you know, you should keep it safe. Take a picture to put in your phone for easy access, but do keep that original in a safe place. And if you're going to buy anything online, maybe those plastic cover sheets for it. That would be good to keep it safe, because you will need it in the future. Let's say you develop adverse effects. The vaccine lot number is an important information for health experts for tracking purposes. And then, you know, maybe some businesses might be offering discounts to those vaccinated, or you might need to show proof of vaccination for work, school, or travel as we move forward from this pandemic. Thomas?
Good advice, Anna. Stick around. I want to hear about your dream job, too, in the roundtable segment of our program. We've got news from the West Coast now. First, we go to Los Angeles, where a select number of elementary schools and education centers will be reopened. Joining us with the details, Eagle News correspondent AJ Rayotutar. Welcome to the program, AJ. What can you tell us?
Thank you, Thomas. So the Los Angeles Unified School District, or LAUSD, reopened elementary schools and early education centers this Tuesday, April 13th, for in-student learning, as the youngest grade level students are welcomed back on campus. With over 600,000 enrolled students, LAUSD is described as the largest public school district in the state and the second largest public school system in the nation. After a little more than a year of online learning in virtual classrooms, 61 elementary schools and 11 early education centers of LAUSD will now open their campuses and classrooms this week for their students to return to finish the rest of the 2020 to 2021 school year. These select elementary schools and early education centers were approved by administrators to reopen first, as they proved to be fully ready, set, and prepared with the required safety precautionary protocols and measures for all teachers, students, and staff. Mayall Academy of Arts and Technology Magnet in North Hills is among those approved by LAUSD to reopen this Tuesday. 7-year-old Lance Rogacion, who is a first grader at this school, expresses his young mind and thoughts as he prepares to go physically to school tomorrow.
I feel very excited to go back to school tomorrow so I could see my friends and teachers after 1 year. I am excited to go back to school in person. I have prepared all the things I need to bring to school. My books, school supplies like pencils, erasers, and art supplies. They are all in my backpack. My mom also prepared extra set of clothes, masks, and sanitizer, just in case. We are required to bring our own water bottle. So there are emergency water bottles available in our classroom. I will be very careful in school. I will practice social distancing and follow all the safety rules. All set and ready to go to school tomorrow.
The rest of the elementary schools and early education centers of LAUSD will follow next week, reopening the week of April 19th. And then the middle and high schools the week after, reopening the week of April 26th. Los Angeles Unified is taking this phased approach and reopening their schools for the safety of all their students and staff. Our EBC LA correspondent, Mylene Cusho, is on site in front of one of the schools to briefly explain to us the options given to parents and how the in-person will be like for these young students.
Thank you, AJ. Last month in March, parents of LAUSD were provided a program selection form to complete and submit by March 19. This form allowed the parents to select whether or not they want their child to remain online learning or to return to school for in-person learning. For those who selected in-person learning, for the young learners, they will be grouped into two cohorts. There is a morning cohort and an afternoon cohort. The morning cohort starts from 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. and then they go back home or they stay at school for childcare. And then the afternoon cohort starts from 12 p.m. noon to 3 p.m. with childcare as an option in the morning. But if childcare is not an option for the family or the student, then the child will have to be in school by 12 o'clock. If they're not in-person learning, they will be either at home or in school doing what is called asynchronous work, which is independent studies, where they will do their assigned homework or any other classroom assignments that they need to complete. Back to you, AJ.
It will be a new kind of normal when students, including teachers and staff, return in person in physical classrooms. There are requirements outlined by LAUSD, which include taking a COVID-19 test the week before and having a negative test result no earlier than 7 days before even setting foot on school grounds. Afterward, everyone is required to test weekly for COVID-19, which will be administered at their school site. In Panorama City, California, AJ Rio-Tutar, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Thanks for the report, AJ, and do stick around for our roundtable later on in the program. Well, still on the West Coast, this will be a welcome break for a number of essential workers, first responders, healthcare professionals. You know, the Hollywood Bowl is reopening, and as part of that reopening, they're going to be offering 4 free concerts for these folks. Joining us now to explain and tell us more about that, EBC's Jade Furran. Jade, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Thomas. With vaccine rollouts in full effect throughout the state of California, along with significant decreases in hospitalizations and confirmed COVID-19 cases, the targeted June 15th state reopening date is very likely and hopeful. Throughout this pandemic, healthcare and essential workers have selflessly placed the communities they serve before their own health and well-being to care for those who were afflicted with this virus. With the state's plan to reopen, many well-known concert venues and events are also preparing reopening plans to pay tribute to essential workers and open their doors once again to their fans and the public. Starting in May, the Hollywood Bowl plans to reopen with limited capacity and host 4 free concerts for healthcare workers and first responders to kick off its reopening. In compliance with the required guidelines of the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health, the venue will be able to accommodate about 4,000 people in the audience area for concerts and events, with the great possibility of increasing this capacity in several months. To welcome back the public into its venue, the Hollywood Bowl will hold 4 concerts, free of charge, for healthcare workers, first responders, and essential workers to appreciate their hard work and tireless efforts for the residents of Los Angeles during the pandemic. Kaiser Permanente is a sponsor for three of these scheduled concerts. Hollywood Bowl posts on its website, "We are delighted to share with you that the Hollywood Bowl will be reopening this summer. We are intensely grateful for the support you have shown us over the past year, whether it was by donating, keeping a credit on your account, or sharing your concert memories and words of encouragement. We can't wait to enjoy the experience of live music under the Southern California night sky with you again. With the safety of all attendees being the Hollywood Bowl's top priority, they are partnering closely with Kaiser Permanente and the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health on reopening plans that will include contactless ticketing, cleaning and sanitation schedules, mask policies, social distancing procedures, and many other safety procedures to ensure the latest public health guidelines and regulations are being followed." In Oxnard, California, Jade Farron, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Thomas.
Certainly something for them to look forward to. Thanks for the report, Jade, and do stick around for our roundtable. Up next, still to come, we've got EBC Sports. You're watching Eagle News America.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights, sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
The Olympics just around the corner, and a team that many will have their eyes on is the USA women's soccer squad. Penny Sumagi joins us now to tell us how the team members feel about going for gold as well as gender inequities in sports. Penny?
Thanks, Thomas. They are currently the most dominating team in football. Soccer to our American audience. The USA women's soccer team are eyeing for gold in Tokyo after a disappointing outcome at the Rio Games in 2016. We'll hear more from defenders Crystal Dunn and Becky Sauerbrunn on how the U.S. women's soccer team are prepping.
I think it would be an incredible achievement. It would be historical, you know. To be the first team to obviously do it would be really difficult, but I think this team is more than capable of being able to do that, just given the fact that we've had this break to regroup, reset, and refocus. But I think it'd be incredible. I know after 2016, all of us are hungry to get back out there and really show what this team is all about, and to really compete at the highest stage and hopefully bring home a gold medal.
I mean, I think Chris says it perfectly. Honestly, I think we just want to make history, and we hold very high standards and have high goals for ourselves. And one of those things is do it back-to-back.
A hot topic in women's sports is gender inequities. Superstar Megan Rapinoe has been one of many female athletes that are vocal on equal rights in sports. Rapinoe taps in on the the topic.
I think what I always keep coming back to is we have no idea really what women's sports value is. We don't know the value of it. All I know is we've been able to be this successful with the lack of resources and the lack of funding and the lack of investment, all of the things that we talk about. So to me, that proves that there's at least some value worth exploring. So my hope is that, again, and when we talk about equality in women's sports, we always talk first about investment and funding and resources and marketing and branding and investing in not just the players, but the support staff and coaching and, media, TV media, print media, all of it. Those are the things that we talk about first. And I think anybody who, watches us or follows us or really has skin in the game in equal pay or equality in that sense, knows that that's what we talk about first. And at the very end, we understand that if all of those things are done, then yes, we will most likely be requiring a much higher salary.
Tomorrow, we will continue to take a look on how two of America's most decorated Olympians are preparing for the Tokyo Games. Swimmer Katie Ledecky and track and field, Allison Felix. In New York, Tenny Sumaki, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Back to you, Tom.
Thanks, Tenny, and we'll see you at the roundtable in just a couple of minutes. Basketball news now. The Denver Nuggets looked well on their way to extending that win streak to 9 as they led the Boston Celtics into the third quarter. Boston, however, well, they had other plans. With the details on that, Julianne Evangelista reports from Boston.
The Celtics showcased some mental toughness against the red-hot Nuggets, capping a 31-3 run late in the third quarter and closing the game with a 40-8 run. Boston ended Denver's 8-game winning streak and have won 5 of their last 6 games.
I mean, it all worked together. The defense, the physicality of the defense led to a more determined approach offensively, to better shot profile offensively, to more attack offensively. And, that was the key, I think, to the 40-11 run or whatever it was. But, they missed some shots in there, but we also challenged a lot. And so that was encouraging. We played better defense of late. But, again, that doesn't mean anything Tuesday night against a really good team with special guards.
That was big. Because we could have let it get away from us. Obviously, they was up big, but that group to end the third and kind of start the fourth kind of kick-started that run. And then when we subbed in, we kind of carried it on from there.
Just sticking it out, playing hard, utilizing each other out there. Tonight was great. We made a great comeback, and we kind of never looked back. We got stronger as the game went on.
The Celtics continued their road trip to Portland, where they will face Damian Lillard and the Trailblazers. In Boston, Massachusetts, Julianne Louis Evangelista, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Time now for our virtual roundtable. So, gang, gather around. The topic: when you were growing up, what was your dream job? Is any part of that still true? And, if it isn't, what prevented you from living that dream? Are you disappointed, or maybe you just outgrew it, Something like that. Let's begin with our newcomer. Welcome to the program, Jade. I understand this is your first program. What was your dream job?
Hi, Thomas. Well, growing up, I really liked playing volleyball. I played it in middle school and I played it in high school, and I play it now recreationally with my friends on my free time, and I still enjoy it. I don't play it as much anymore because I injured myself a couple years ago, so that's what stopped me. But if I were to have a dream job, it would be playing volleyball professionally so that I could travel. But it's okay now because I still get to play it on my free time.
Your cohort in California there. AJ, what about you?
As a kid, I enjoyed playing Pokemon. So my dream job was obviously to become a Pokemon master, but for obvious reasons that didn't pan out. So right now I'm just looking forward to trying to become a physical therapist for the Los Angeles Lakers.
I got to ask you, were you disappointed or did you just outgrow it?
I was thoroughly disappointed, so still have some childhood trauma from that. Still working on it.
Is there any money in Pokemon?
There is. You can make a lot by battling other trainers, battling bad guys, so yeah.
Mayanne, what say you? What was your dream? Somebody told me you wanted to be a princess when you grew up.
Thomas, no, of course not. I didn't ever. Well, Thomas, in high school, I really wanted to be a mayor.
A mayor?
Yes, I wanted to be a mayor of our town and the province in the Philippines. I don't know why. I wanted to be important. I was very political. But obviously it didn't happen. I am not Mayor Mayanne Garzon. I am a news reporter. And yeah, that is still very important.
You disappointed that you didn't become the mayor?
No, I outgrew. I realized I can't be a politician.
That's good. I like you better as a news correspondent, as a journalist, than I would as a mayor.
I take that as a compliment. Thank you, Tom.
Because you're not a politician then. Eliza, how about you?
Hi, Thomas. I've always wanted to be on TV news, not as the story, but someone who tells it. So I think it's safe to say that I am living my dream job.
You're living your dream job. Yeah, I can kind of relate to that. Tenny.
I'll tell you my dream school. At 8 years old, I vowed that I was going to go to Columbia University and be some Ivy League genius. But in high school, I wanted to follow my father's footsteps and work in Wall Street and be a really good trader. My dad was worked for Goldman Sachs as an accountant, but I wanted to be like my dad, like the female version. But I graduated college with a music education degree. But I did get into my dream school. I did attend Columbia University for my master's, only to drop out because it was too expensive. So currently, I am a teacher, plus I trade foreign currencies on the side. So I am living my dream job. And in Whitney Houston's words, I'm a teacher because I believe the children are our future. Teach them well and let them lead the way.
Okay, Whitney. I remember that song. And I'll talk to you a little bit later about foreign currency there. Anna, what say you?
Hi, Thomas. You know, when I was a little girl, I always wanted to be, my dream job would have been to be a flight attendant. Because I thought there was just something glamorous about it, to be able to travel to many places. But I outgrew it rather quickly after my first plane ride. I'm not disappointed. I realized that I didn't like, flying after all. So not disappointed. Now I have two dream jobs, being in healthcare and being in journalism, where I can be of service to the public.
And that's a good point you bring up. You're in your dream job now. For the rest of you, I've got to ask, is there still a dream you would like to pursue, perhaps as a second career? Or are you satisfied with what you're doing now, Eliza? Is there a second career for you?
I think this is it for me. Yes, this is it for me. I'm doing what I love, and I plan to continue to keep telling stories that matter to people around me and to people who wants to hear stories that matter.
It doesn't get any better than being a storyteller. I mean, I've been doing this for decades, and it just doesn't get any better. And I think you share that as well, Mayanne.
Yes, Thomas, definitely. Like Eliza, this is the dream job. If anything, I just want to be a better version of who I am or what I do right now, Thomas.
AJ, what would you do if you could do anything at this point in terms of a dream job? What would you aspire to?
Oh, as I said earlier, I aspire to become a physical therapist on a professional sports team, most likely, or hopefully the Los Angeles Lakers here in Los Angeles.
Okay, and Jade?
Currently, I'm pursuing a post-bac degree in healthcare. So I really like chemistry and math. So being in that field would be my dream job.
What field of healthcare are you in?
I would like to go towards pharmacy. So helping people would be the better route.
Yeah, I sort of wanted to be in healthcare, but that was, I don't know. When I was 11 years old, I wanted to be a DJ in a radio station. That was it. That was the dream. That's what I aspired to do. And I spent a number of years going to university. And while I was going to university, a friend of mine who was working his way through university as a DJ was changing jobs, but he was also failing a chemistry course that he needed. He just couldn't wrap his head around organic chemistry. So I made a deal with him. Help me get the job that you're leaving, which was a part-time job while I was going to university, and I'll guarantee you an A in chemistry. I mean, chemistry is so simple it embarrasses you to teach it. It's just an easy subject, basically, at least at that level. So he got his A in chemistry. He showed me the basics of how to run a control board and what to say and not to say in my interview, because obviously I was lying and claiming to have experience in Canada. This happened in the United States. I worked illegally down there for a number of years, and I got the job. And that launched my career. I dropped out of university, and it lasted for 37 years as a broadcaster and journalist. It was great living the dream. Then I got to live it again right here at Eagle Broadcasting. So it's really been a fun time. I'm one of the few people I think that can say I lived the dream. Anybody want to add anything else? Because
that was quite a story, Thomas. Thank you for sharing.
Anyway, I don't know whether these folks I'm about to mention are in their dream job or not, and I'm sure some days they got to be shaking their heads and saying, when's it all going to end? When's it going to get back to normal? But I do know one thing about them. They show a lot of dedication. And I'm talking about our healthcare workers, our first responders, our essential workers, people in those fields of all types, everybody out there on the front line. Let's show them our appreciation for their work and recognize them with a round of applause. Just want to say we appreciate you. That's today's Eagle News, and I want to thank you for joining us. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, and truly, we live in interesting times.